LLC that is 100% owned by the person who owns 100% of the home outright.
Right.
So they're not going, so if someone has an LLC and says, my LLC is going to buy this property, no lender's going to lend to them.
Right.
So they're going to have to buy it outright.
Yeah.
And so continuing on, you go back and you look at this 5 years down the line and you see what the value of it is. The problem with that analysis is in a period of rising interest rates is if this individual transfers the home into the LLC, it triggers the due on sale clause. Now, the lender has to find that was done before they're going to call it. But you always run the risk of that when interest rates are rising, because when interest rates are rising, the bank wants to get rid of all these low interest rates and refinance to a higher rate. When interest rates are falling, it's generally not going to be a problem. The mortgage company doesn't want that asset off the books. They want you to continue to pay 5% when they can get 2% on new loans. Right. But it is a conundrum, and I've never figured out if I created an LLC that said, I cannot transfer this LLC to anyone else as long as I'm living and I own this piece of property and have this mortgage. Why wouldn't a lender lend to the LLC? And yet they won't. It's a crazy thing, but you're right. And what's important about what you said is the mortgage company's got the first lien interest, and that's really going to take care of you getting sued. What it isn't going to take care of is when you get sued and you own this house in your own name, is when rents come into you, it may not, when they hit your bank account, that may not stop a judgment creditor from being able to take those funds, which is why we have them in an LLC.
Yeah.
Now,
what about just to kind of ask you, the LLP or a trust, using any of those other?
Well, so here's the thing with the trust. I don't generally use LLPs. I don't know that I've ever used an LLP for ownership of real estate because I've got LLCs available.
Right.
And they're LLPs are a little bit clunkier because you're required to have insurance available, and you've got to deal more with the Secretary of State's office on an annual basis than having an LLC.
Okay. Trust.
So a trust, this is very interesting. If I own an asset and I transfer it to a trust of which I'm the beneficiary, in Texas, that does not protect that asset. I can't put assets into a trust for me and protect it from my creditors. Right. If I take assets and put it into a trust for my child, I protect that asset from my child's creditors, but not mine. Okay. Now, there are several states, Alaska, I'm trying to think, Delaware, where you can put assets into a trust for yourself and thwart creditors' claims, but you can't do that in Texas. Okay. So really the entity of choice for owning real estate is generally going to be an LLC or a limited partnership. Limited partnerships are 2 tiers. So if you have an asset you want to put in trust for children, it's kind of nice. The parents can own an LLC and we can have trusts as beneficiaries of a limited partnership. Then the older generation controls, as the general partner, they control the business of the partnership.
Right.
These are the reasons why talking to an attorney about them, it is not a bad thing when you're looking to structure protecting your assets from creditors.
Definitely.
I was going to say, I can't remember. I was going to say something else, but I can't remember what it was.
Tell me, just maybe one last question in that line of thinking is, do you deal very much with people that are disposing of assets utilizing the 1031 code?
You know what? I did that early in my practice. I did a lot. We served as an intermediary, so we did a lot of 1031 exchanges. I'm happy to, and I don't do that anymore because title companies and exchange corporations can do it so much easier and less expensive than I can do it. But in Texas, the real problem has been, as the prices of real estate got out of control, is there haven't been a lot of replacement properties. So it's been harder and harder to do exchanges unless you're willing to do it with something like a REIT.
Right.
So it sounds like you have still been doing a lot of 1031 exchanges. I just have a lot of my clients have had a terrible time trying to find replacement property, and that sort of thwarts the whole idea of trying to do a 1031 exchange.
What I have found worked really good in the last 2 years. So
Right.
2020, 2021, 2022 also, just thinking back to some of the things that I did was because the market was so strong, I had investors that wanted to take advantage of that ability to cash out on
Right.
unfavorable investment.
Right.
And there's always a market segment. As I say always, I shouldn't use that word, but generally speaking, if you do enough research, you're going to find a market segment that you can buy into.
Okay.
And so you just have to think outside the box.
Okay.
So I was able to find and identify some market segments that were excellent roles for these investors. I did one as well, and take advantage of market conditions, roll out of something that is unfavorable for a multitude of reasons. It's old, maybe it's too far away, and the rest of your assets are closer in. I had one individual that every time this property came up for rent, it was a nightmare. Don't know why. It was a beautiful home.
Yeah.
But it was just like, every time that house came up, we were kind of like, oh, not that one.
Wow. So
And we got rid of it.
are you going outside the Austin area to smaller places?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. So generally speaking, I work Central Texas.
Okay.
I do an awful lot of work in College Station, which is a thriving community.
That's what I have. I have several clients who have bought a number of places there, mostly because they had a bunch of children.
Right.
They were buying places for their kids to live when they were in school.
Yeah, I'm a member of the board in College Station. I think I did 13 deals out there last year.
Wow.
So several million in volume. And this year already, I've sold definitely more than $1 million in volume.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's fabulous.
Thank you.
That
I
is
love that
really
market.
fabulous.
It's a very cool town. You want to be smart about how you approach these things, especially when you're working with investors.
Right.
It's so easy to get caught up in what you hear or what you see. It was interesting to me going through 2020 and 2021 to have investors calling me, investors I hadn't talked to in years, mind you, that were like, give me a house. I don't care where it is. Give me a house. Because it's so easy when you see this media pumping you with everybody's buying, you should buy.
Interesting.
And it was very interesting because right now, this climate is 100% investor climate. 100%.
Because investors can get the money.
It isn't really about getting the money, although I see your point in saying that, but quite frankly, seller confidence is very low.
Oh, interesting.
Homes are sitting on the market longer. You're not paying full price. Potentially.
Interesting.
I'm still seeing multiple offers on lots of things, but
Okay.
I've been doing this for 17 years, and I would say I've given this a lot of thought. I believe it was back in 2009 was the last time I saw seller concessions equal to what I'm seeing this year.
Wow. Oh, that's very interesting. And I'm glad to know that because, of course, I've got all the probates that I have that have got houses in there and maybe you've got kids, maybe the surviving spouse passed and they're trying to decide if they're going to hold on and lease the house for a period of time until the market comes back up. And it's more of a seller's market. And I am seeing a lot of that.
Yeah.
I would like to say, just because I feel like I need to say one more thing, which is when we were talking about investors, there's a reason why I was talking about trusts, limited partnerships, and limited liability companies. A corporation is not an appropriate entity to hold real estate in, because the recognition rules of gains and losses takes place at odd times, not just when you sell. So do not, if you don't get anything else from this, do not put rental real estate into a corporation, whether it's a C Corp or an S Corp. It's not an appropriate vehicle.
Good to know. Thank you, Jan.
So that's very important to make sure people understand.
Well, let's see. We're probably just right at the top of the hour. I like to close a lot of these little chats by asking you a couple of rapid fire questions.
Okay.
And you don't have to answer them if you don't want
Okay.
to.
Hopefully I can.
So here's one of my favorite questions, either your favorite book of all times, or what are you reading right now?
I'm afraid to tell you that one of my favorite books of all times is Atlas Shrugged, because it is not my political philosophy in any way, shape, or form, but it's a great story. Okay. It's just a great story. I've read it a number of times, and even though she goes through all of her libertarian spiels, you can actually turn the pages and not read them, but it's a great story. Right now, I have been reading Outlander. It's a series.
Yes.
There's 9 books that are out. It follows fairly well the TV show on Starz, but I have thoroughly, anything that is historical fiction, I generally enjoy.
I love that.
So what are you reading?
Well, going back to historical fiction, I really just have such a love relationship with Clan of the Cave Bears.
Oh, I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah, it's such a good series of books. It's the Earth's Children, starting way back at the beginning of time.
Oh, wow.
And there's a lot of research that goes into these books, but of course, a lot of fiction as well. So I read those books, the series, originally when I think I was about 19, and my dad and I both read them at the same time.
That's wonderful. That's what my husband and I used to do with friends. We used to all read Lord of the Rings at the same time, and we read it every couple of years.
Right.
Just because there's so much that's right. But I will tell you, if you like historical fiction, Ken Follett has got 2 series, and they're each 3 books. One of them is Pillars of the Earth, which starts in 1123 and then goes through basically the Spanish Inquisition. And then he's got what's called the Century Trilogy, which is about the 20th century.
I love it. I'm going to look both of them.
They're both fabulous series and really great reads.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Well, I know you're a longtime Austinite, so my last question for you would be favorite Austin eats.
Oh, Hyde Park Bar and Grill has been one of my favorites forever. We were at Maudie's last night. We had some friends who were in for South by, and we took them to Maudie's for Tex-Mex last night.
Very nice.
Those are kind of at the top of my list, but we also love Perry's and Roaring Fork.
Oh, yes. They're very good.
They have, if you like trout, that's some of the best trout in the city.
Beautiful.
Fork.
I love it. Those are really great. Well, I'll wrap it up. I sure appreciate your time,
Thank
your
you.
knowledge.
I appreciate it. I hope I've said at least one thing that helped people who may come and listen to this chat.
100%.
Thank you for the opportunity.
You're so welcome. I'll be putting your details in the link in case anyone wants to reach out to you. They can.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, Janice. Well, you have a great day. Thanks
You
for your
too.
time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.